would be rejected by a significant margin. The Prime Minister acknowledged that widespread concerns about the backstop contingency plan for the Irish border meant that she would be defeated if the vote went ahead as planned. Here's our political correspondent, Leila Nathu.
Theresa May hopes that pressing the EU for further assurances over the Irish border will be enough to persuade a majority of MPs to support her deal. She challenged her critics to come up with a workable alternative that could be delivered, and said while there was still disagreement, the government would be stepping up preparations for a no-deal outcome. She said the Commons had a fundamental decision to make. Did it want to deliver Brexit? But she received a hostile reception, including from her own backbenchers. Jeremy Corbyn said the government had lost control of events and was in disarray, while the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Vince Cable, urged Labour to go for a vote of no confidence.
A 52-year-old convicted paedophile has been found guilty of murdering two 9-year-old girls near Brighton in 1986. Russell Bishop was cleared exactly 31 years ago of strangling and sexually assaulting Karen Hadaway and Nicola Fellows, but was ordered to stand trial again when new forensic evidence emerged. Helena Lee reports from the Old Bailey.
After a 7-week trial, the jury took just 2.5 hours to reach their verdicts in a case going back 32 years. The girls' families wept as they were read out. Guilty of murdering Nicola Fellows, said the foreman, and guilty of murdering Karen Hadaway. Bishop was described during his trial as a violent and predatory paedophile. He chose not to come to court to hear his fate. He's already serving life in prison for trying to kill a 7-year-old girl 3 years after he murdered the schoolgirls. Bishop will be sentenced tomorrow.
Union leaders have urged the government to give assurances to workers at the outsourcing firm Interserve after it announced it was in talks to avoid a repeat of the collapse of its former rival, Carillion. The company has debts of more than £500 million. Its share price plummeted this morning as it proposed converting much of its debt into new shares. Transport for London has warned that the Crossrail network through the capital could be delayed even further and require another £2 billion in additional funding. The opening date for Europe's biggest infrastructure project had already been put back by 9 months. Sophie Long reports.
London's £15 billion new underground rail route had originally been due to open this month. In August, that was put back until autumn next year. Now, TfL says more work is required than had been envisaged when that revised opening date was given. An independent review found that between £1.6 and £2 billion will be required to complete the project. A £1.4 billion bailout has been announced, the third this year, that will be used to help plug that hole.
Barristers representing survivors of the Grenfell Tower disaster have accused London Fire Brigade of failing to plan for an incident of that size. The public inquiry was told that the service knew the risks of a fire in a high-rise building, but did not ensure that its firefighters were adequately trained or that its equipment had been tested properly. France's President Emmanuel Macron is promising major announcements this evening as he seeks to appease a growing anti-government movement. Protesters have taken to the streets on 4 consecutive weekends to demand an end to fuel tax rises and high living costs. The country's finance minister says their action had been an economic catastrophe. NASA has announced that the Voyager 2 spacecraft has become the second man-made object to leave our solar system. It was launched in 1977, 16 days before its twin, Voyager 1, but that probe's faster trajectory meant it reached what the agency called the space between the stars 6 years earlier.
Thanks, Luke. Well, it's hard to convey a sense of acute crisis when the condition for the government and its Brexit policy persists day after day. But that is where we are. In essence, Theresa May delayed the deal, not pulled it. Highly unlikely she'll get substantive concessions in the next few days or week. She doesn't seem even to be seeking them. She just wants clarifications. It seems highly unlikely that'll be enough to win MPs over to the deal. Is the Prime Minister deluded about her ability to win the vote eventually? Or is she playing the clock, hoping that come, say, January, MPs will have fewer choices but to support her? Well, let's listen to her in the Commons this afternoon. A passionate defence of her compromise, but a willingness to hear concerns.
I've listened very carefully to what has been said in this chamber and out of it. To what has been said in this chamber and out of it by members from all sides. From listening to those views, it is clear that while there is broad support for many of the key aspects of the deal, on one issue, the Northern Ireland backstop, there remains widespread and deep concern. As a result, if we went ahead and held the vote tomorrow, the deal would be rejected by a significant margin. We will therefore defer the vote scheduled for tomorrow and not proceed to divide the House at this time.
But the Prime Minister went on to defend her deal as the right one.
From the moment I took up the responsibility of being Prime Minister of this great country, I've known that my duty is to honour the result of that vote. And I've been just as determined to protect the jobs that put food on the tables of working families and the security partnerships that keep each one of us safe. And that's what this deal does. It gives us control of our borders, our money and our laws. It protects jobs, security and our union. It is the right deal for Britain. I am determined to do all I can to secure the reassurances this House requires, to get this deal over the line and deliver for the British people. And I commend this statement to the House.
Well, it was a heartfelt statement, but I'm not sure it did the job because there was criticism from all sides. Firstly, from the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn.
The government is in disarray. Uncertainty is building for business. People are in despair at the state of these failed negotiations and concerned about what it means about their jobs, their livelihood and their communities. And the fault for that lies solely at the door of this shambolic government. The Prime Minister is trying to buy herself one last chance to save this deal. If she doesn't take on board the fundamental changes required, then she must make way for those who can.
Well, for the SNP, Kirsty Blackman said the government was wasting precious time.
What she is really scared of is allowing this House to determine the way forward and allowing the public the opportunity to remain in the EU. She knows she's lost, but she's still wasting precious time. Mr. Speaker, we need the Prime Minister to be clear about when the House will vote on this deal. This government and the Prime Minister have failed. It's time they got out of the way. Prime Minister, members across this House don't want your deal. The EU don't want to renegotiate. Isn't the only way to break